We are here at Edison Sno-Park here in Central Oregon, here to do a snow hike. So you can see it is snowing. It's a balmy 21. Let's walk over here and look at a little bit of the signage. Here's our general sign of the map. I was actually going to do Tesla snowshoe, but I can see from the conditions there's not enough snow. Basically be walking through an obstacle course. Typically when the snow is at a higher level, it's above all of the logs and the bushes. So I'm not going to do that today. Instead, I'm going to do a long snowshoe loop and just do a side jaunt over to the Edison shelter. Let's get going. You'll notice these little blue signs with the yellow person on them. Those are our snowshoe markers. As we start a long snowshoe loop, see there's very little snow. We're right at the beginning of the first week of snow. So we look at a little snowshoe sign on the tree. So I've been checking the forecast a lot the last week, and Mount Bachelor, which is nearby, is supposed to get 5 inches yesterday. I was hoping there would be more of a snow accumulation on the ground today, but alas, I have been foiled. We're particularly late into the season. Today is December 9th. Typically by second, third week of November, this area is a blanketed winter wonderland. But because La Nina is delaying the annual snowfall this year, this is still really more of a forest hike. I actually brought my snowshoes and my trekking poles, but certainly no need to deploy either. Essentially treating this as a glorified near summer hike with a slight dusting of snow. Certainly is very cold, however, about a solid 21 degrees. My hands are turning pink, but that's okay. I got here, I was the only car in the parking lot. Pretty good indication that this is not a popular spot right now, but I'm a road not traveled kind of guy. To stop and look at this incredible ponderosa pine with that beautiful red bark. Now that is a behemoth. So we hike along the snowshoe trail. Snowshoes and trekking poles certainly not necessary at this point in the year. We do anticipate in the next couple weeks this area will be blanketed. It's a balmy 21 degrees right now, quite chilly. This is beautiful. All sorts of little obstacles. Careful ways to get down. Having been here when it's a winter wonderland, I can tell you it's actually a lot easier when there's several foot blanket of snow on the ground. I don't have to even worry about any of these rocks. I didn't know they were here. We continue to keep exploring this beautiful ponderosa pine forest. Wow. The trail marker indicating to continue to go straight. This area is quite beautiful. This is my first time actually seeing this without it being blanketed in snow. I was coming expecting or hoping for a little bit more of a snow accumulation, but it's okay. It's still quite beautiful on its own right. This is definitely my kind of forest. Got these ponderosa pines, classic Central Oregon, as I would call it. Ponderosas and lodge poles. Don't really have much snow accumulation yet, or any really, other than a minor dusting. That beautiful ponderosa pine. Doing a panorama of this beautiful forest as the snow comes down. Hiking a snowshoe loop a little prematurely. Stop enjoying the beautiful forest. The snow coming down in these rock formations. And we're admiring the early phases of the summer to winter transition. Snow is coming down and just lightly dusting the area. For the next couple weeks, this will transform into an epic, thick snow winter wonderland. We're admiring this beautiful ponderosa pine tree. You can also tell if it's a ponderosa pine by that reddish bark. Look at that thing, it's massive. And we've come to an intersection for our snowshoe hiking, minus all of the snow on the ground. If we want to do a short snowshoe loop, continue on to Edison Shelter that way. If we want to continue on the long snowshoe loop, Edison Shelter is ironically the same distance. We go this way. Edison Shelter, where we're headed towards, is only 1.25 miles this way. We'll be there before we know it. Taking a look back at these gorgeous ponderosa pines, classic Central Oregon. As we continue to hike forward, our blue signs on the tree there tell us to keep going this way over the snowy log. It's actually ironically a lot easier to do once the snow accumulates more heavily and there's a entrenched little path and you don't really have to think about where you're going. But I know we're in that transition from summer to winter where it's actually a little confusing where to go. So thank goodness for these blue signs that mark the way. And over here and look at that. That is beautiful. As we continue along, and using these blue markers on the trees for my guide, terrain itself is not at all self-evident where the correct path is to go. Fortunately, we got these markers. Typically what happens is once this says several feet of snow accumulation, there will be a rutted trail that weaves its way through the whole area, so you won't even really have to think. You just stay on the rutted trail. But right now, since we can go in any direction, we gotta pay attention to figure out the right path. Weaving between some volcanic rock, getting some beautiful pines in every direction. This is classic, quintessential Central Oregon. These lodgepole and ponderosa pines littering the forest. Hike along our trail. Continue to hike along. The snow is starting to come down a little heavier. Did want to do a panorama of this beautiful area. Attempting to do long snowshoe loop. The lack of snow is essentially making it a forest hike. Nevertheless, quite beautiful. I'm also being bear aware, seeing as I'm the only human being within miles of this location, and I don't know if the bears have hibernated yet for the season. I guess I'll find out very shortly. Coming up to a junction here. Take a look. Short snowshoe loop, Edison Shelter 1 mile, Edison Sno-Park 1 3/4 mile that way. Let's walk over here and read what this says. Long snowshoe loop, another 2 3/4 mile this way. I kind of have hankering to go see the Edison Shelter, so I'm gonna turn right here for a mile before I continue along on the longer portion. So let's go. Gotta say, this section's kind of refreshing after essentially rock formation hopping for about a half mile. It's nice just to be able to walk on some flat, solid ground. This section will go by very quickly. Also a little less snow accumulation over here, but we're talking degrees of dustage, not much either way. Beautiful ponderosa pines. You can tell it's a ponderosa pine by the reddish bark. This is a very beautiful little dusting of snow creates contrast and kind of amps up the vividness of the green bushes and red bark of the ponderosa pine. And it makes this area come alive a bit, feel more vivid. It's not incredibly easy to tell where to go. A little bit of a formed trail, but enough deviations and variations that the blue marker indicator signs on the trees are quite helpful. Look in the area, there's several ponderosa pines dotting our beautiful trail. That's a cool one, growing out of the rock. As we continue past these ponderosa behemoths, it's slightly snowing. There's some flakes. It's a very warm and steamy 21 degrees, probably about 13 or 14 with wind chill. Not bad. These flakes are just beautiful that are coming down on us. Snow's starting to come down a little bit more. We are treating this more like a classic forest hike, boot packing. And now we're actually headed towards Edison Shelter, very beautiful log cabin shelter with a fire area, very beautiful. It's a cool big log straight ahead there. Using these blue markers to chart our path. There's another one. This area is absolutely beautiful. This is a heavy snow area. Central Oregon is not a shy area when it comes to snow. We are, after all, in the foothills of Mount Bachelor, one of the two main ski resorts of the whole state. So later in the season, this will be an absolutely epic winter wonderland. This is a really beautiful area. And now I'm under a half mile from the Edison Shelter. Beautiful log cabin type shelter that I'm looking forward to taking a look at. Also, it's got a practical purpose of literally being a shelter in case somebody gets lost or has some sort of temperature related issue. We've got a shelter with the ability to make fire quickly if necessary. It's got a big wooden stove and some wood typically in there, so good to have shelters in your snow play areas. And look at that. We have found the beautiful Edison shelter. We're here on Long Snowshoe Loop, exploring this classic Central Oregon pine forest. And here is a log cabin named Edison Shelter. Very cool point of interest, landmark in the area. You could actually come winter backpacking here, spend the night, do the winter camping experience. Also, it's just practically convenient for shelter. There's a stove inside, wood stove. And let's go take a look inside of this log cabin. This is cool. Here's our front porch, a couple benches, threshold to step in. And look at that, that is awesome. And got our wood burning stove. Got a cool bench. You can actually throw a sleeping bag or two on there, or even just on the ground here. It's pretty popular to have a winter excursion where you come and spend the night in a place like this. This is pretty awesome. Hang out here, have some hot cocoa, some marshmallows, whatever it may be, and have this as what you see out of your front stoop. Benches you can sit on and admire the forest and maybe have a drink of some sort. And today is December 9th, it's 21 degrees. We're just starting to get some snow in this area. Eventually this area will get up to 10 feet. It will be a winter wonderland here, foothills of Mount Bachelor. Let's stop and take a look back at Edison Shelter. It's a very cool little log cabin. As we leave the beautiful Edison Shelter, we're gonna head back to the trailhead.